really believe. I don't believe in creation, as opposed to evolution. I don't believe in straight line evolution either. I believe that, and this has gotten around a long way since I grappled with this in the late '80s. But I believe that man is a product of externally corrected evolution, which is part of the things Bob has read in those reports out there. In other words, that man's straight line evolution was intervened by a non-deity catalyst. And so, I don't think that when the dinosaurs were here, we were some little rodent hiding in the bushes and we ended up being the human beings we are. I think our evolution has been intervened by at least, who knows how many times, but certainly by someone from elsewhere. And I think ufology, I think UFOs and aliens, which may look like us or may not look like us, are the basis for many of the God, Lord, and angel stories from the Old Testament. And if you read Zechariah Sitchin's Earth Chronicles and look at the Sumerian writings and all of that information, I think you start to get a handle on how all of the religions and things that really govern this planet, and in some instances ruin this planet, where they came from and how things got to be the way they are. So I guess that's a plus. I don't know.
John, anything to elaborate on that?
Well, I got a little bit farther than that. I really believe that the entire solar system is inhabited. All the planets are inhabited, including the Moon, Venus, Jupiter. They say that, 4 of the planets are gas giants. The only gas giant we have in this solar system is NASA and his son, Jim Obert. But
NASA's the only gas giant?
What's that?
Did you say NASA is the only gas giant?
Yeah, NASA would be the only gas giant.
Fellows, it's been interesting. We've still got some time to go. We're going to be opening up the phone lines with our listener questions, and I've got a few more of my own, and we might still hear from Bob. I don't know. Stick around, everyone, for more Coast to Coast AM. I'm George Knapp. Welcome back, everyone. My guests, John Lear, Gene Huff, talking about the origins of the Bob Lazar story, Area 51, flying saucers, all of that. I'm going to go to the phone lines in just a second. I do want to touch on one other thing. Gene, you were talking about how this has profoundly affected your view of life and universe and where we came from. There was something else that Bob Lazar said he read in some of the documents out at Groom Lake that is very disturbing. We didn't touch on it before, but it was tough to get out of him, as I recall. And I'm talking about this reference to a harvesting of souls. Do you remember what that was about?
I don't think Bob read anything about a harvesting of souls. He read that man was the product of externally corrected evolution and that man as a species had been genetically altered 65 times. And, of course, we extrapolated that out and said, now, how do you genetically alter a species? Certainly breeding wouldn't do it, especially historically when transportation and communication weren't what they are now. So we actually concluded that airborne and waterborne viruses, especially retroviruses, just like AIDS is a retrovirus that goes in and destroys your immune system, if an advanced intelligence could, do genetic alterations and actually send airborne and waterborne retroviruses out to retrofit anything that has that water and air as a common denominator, could then be genetically altered. John, do you recall Bob reading? I mean, I know there's been a lot of info on the harvesting of souls, but did you recall Bob reading that at S4? I don't.
No, what he read was that the aliens referred to us as containers.
Right.
And I was trying to get him to say, well, I think what we contain is souls. He says, no, it didn't say that. He said it could be,
there's the right genetic information to be altered or whatever.
Just let me say here that since Bob probably isn't going to call in, I'd like to tell our listening audience what I think that he would have said if he'd come on.
Okay.
He would have said, I don't know, I don't remember, I don't care, I don't recall. And any question that starts with, well, John Lear says, Bob would have said, everybody knows John Lear is a nutball.
Yeah, John Lear is crazy. But, yeah, on that note, I mean, we all know each other here in Las Vegas, and we have talked about many things that I don't know if they're able to be understood out of context to someone who doesn't know anything about the subject and happens to be listening. So we may have to come back another time and answer a lot more questions because the things we've said beg more questions. And I'd also like to say that Bob really was regretful that he was supposed to try and call in, but he was in transit over a 2,000-mile trip hauling 3 horses and 3 dogs and 3 cats and furniture in a 4-vehicle caravan. And it's not like this was, some ploy to get people to listen that Bob Lazar might call in. I'm certain we can get him to join us another night when he's not in the middle of a cross-country move.
Oh, well put then. We're going to go to the phones, our international line. Greg in Ontario. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Okay. What's on your mind?
First off, I just wanted to congratulate your guests on having the spine to express these kind of views, especially for people with a professional background like a pilot. Some people tend not to take these kind of things seriously. What I wanted to ask, though, was if you gentlemen believe that faster-than-light travel is possible, something along the lines of how it's depicted in Star Trek, for example.
No doubt about it.
How is it depicted in Star Trek?
Well, in Star Trek, it's depicted as just an engineering exercise, and we don't have the engineering expertise yet.
Well, yeah, I'd say we
sorry?
do believe that that's what Bob Lazar learned, is that distorting space and time rather than flying at a significant percentage of the speed of the light in a straight line in a linear mode. They actually distort the space and time that between you and your destination. Similar, I guess, to creating an artificial wormhole. Would that be a good radio demonstration? I don't know. But yes, that you can distort space and time, and ultimately you did travel faster than the speed of light, although you never flew faster than the speed of light in a straight line.
John, you want to tackle that? Yeah, it does. John, you want to tackle that as well?
Well, basically, we think as outer space is a nothing, that is just a cold thing, nothing's there. Actually, 1 cubic meter of space contains 1 hydrogen atom. It's actually a fabric. You could take this and push it and pull it and distort it. What they do with the gravity amplifiers is to pull that space towards them, wrap it around the craft, turn the gravity generator off, and then you're instantaneously hundreds and thousands of miles away from where you pulled that space. You unite or coalesce or join with that particular piece of space, and what they can do is recycle that generator every 12 milliseconds. So if you can travel hundreds of thousands of miles every 12 milliseconds, and you multiply that by how many milliseconds are in, how many 12 milliseconds are in a second, then times a minute, then times a day and a year, you can go a pretty long distance in a pretty short time.
By the way, Earth scientists know that gravity distorts space and time. That's how the old experiment they did where you could see stars behind the sun during an eclipse. That's a famous experiment. So we know that gravity distorts space and time. What we don't know is how you can generate an artificial gravitational field. And this is the info that the aliens brought, how you can, when you can do that, you can distort space and time into a much greater degree than that, caused by a star or a planet.
Greg, thanks for that call. We need to take a break right now. We'll come back with more of your calls for John Lear and Gene Huff right after this. Stay with us. I'm George Knapp on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back, everyone. I'm George Knapp. This is Coast to Coast AM, talking with Gene Huff and John Lear about Area 51, Bob Lazar, flying saucers. You know the story. We're going to go to the phone lines east of the Rockies. Davis in Kentucky. Good morning, Davis.
Good morning, gentlemen, and bless you all. I was thinking back, it's been years ago, but Art had, I thought, Bob on, and they were talking about the 118 element, and somebody called in and said that there was a Microsoft encyclopedia that you can buy called Encarta or something like that, that in the physics section, 1976 or something, there was an article in there about that. And apparently it had been discovered on a meteorite that came in, naturally, and some other elements had been discovered. I don't have the article. I don't have that kind of money to buy that. But anyway, this guy described that they discovered up through 124